Morning, all. So today we're going to take a look at some draft talk, some next year talk, and all that other wonderful stuff. News of the day. And of course, tomorrow we'll have a game six. All right. Sure thing. So the Athletics done another mock draft, and I thought it was noteworthy because, again, the intrigue starts at 2. Everybody agrees with Lafreniere at 1. He's going to the Rangers. I'm sure they've already got a bunch of jerseys made that they're going to throw in their team stores as soon as the draft is done. But at 2, they're taking Stützle, same as I had in my mock draft. And Stützle, I understand he's played wing, and so everybody goes, well, Byfield's the center. He will convert to a center. Stützle does project as a center at the National Hockey League level, which would drop Byfield to 3. Now, they also have Raymond going at 5 to the Senators, and if that happens, the Sens will be doing cartwheels coming out of this draft. It's going to be fascinating. Keep in mind that's on October 6th. There will be a live stream on the channel for that. I saw that in yesterday's live stream, people asking. And yes, we will be live streaming during the draft and going through step by step, pick by pick. And I think it's going to be fascinating because honestly, it is a crapshoot. They also had Winnipeg picking Jake Sanderson at 10. And I thought, boy, if I think almost no matter who Winnipeg picks at 10, I think there's going to be some debate about whether they made a right or a wrong move. But we'll come back to Winnipeg. So last night, Elliot Friedman discussed the NHL and not planning on rushing for next season. The bubbles have cost the National Hockey League between $75 and $90 million. So this is a setup they had to do because they have TV contracts they had to honor, and they had certain financial obligations. They still have those next season. So the idea of, well, they could just take next season off, they really can't, because then not only are they losing the revenues from the income that we as fans provide with gate revenues, but then they're losing that TV revenue on top of it as they go into the next TV contract, which is worthless if they don't play over the next 12 months or however long the next year takes, because 2020's taken at least 3 years. Pretty sure it's been 3 years on the calendar. 2021 may very well be a 3-year year as well. So yeah, they're not planning on rushing into next season, but I want to throw some context into this. So last year's Stanley Cup was awarded on June 12th. October 2nd was the first day of the following season. There's 112 days in between. Now, if the NHL was to take 112 days between tomorrow, let's say tomorrow Tampa Bay wins the Stanley Cup. That would mean that if it was 112 days from a Stanley Cup winner, that's January 18th of 2021. So I'm not saying that's necessarily a date that they would look at and say, well, we can do that. But if you had a January 18th start date, or maybe a couple of weeks before that, you could have a Stanley Cup winner handed out in July, and then get back to a regular schedule for 2021, 2022. And I think that's, at this point, I think that's where they're looking as, okay, we're going to have to figure this out because we want to get back on our regular schedule for the 2021, 2022 season. And so that's the key thing here. Fans in attendance, that's an important thing to look at. There are obviously a lot of other factors in this and how it's going to work. But next season, it's a wide open thing. There will not be bubbles, and I don't think if they exist in the regular season, I don't think they'll exist in the postseason either. I think if if you don't have one for the first, you're not going to have for the second. And with the amount of money that the NHL spent on the bubbles, I don't think that the interest is there from either side. The players seem to be underwhelmed with bubble life, and the NHL underwhelmed with the price tag for it. So yeah, this has been a test of how this is going to work. It's been successful, but I'm sure that going into next year they'll have more of a plan. And again, it's about buying time. This is why when people back in March said, I don't know why they don't just cancel the season and start in October on time. And I kept saying there's no guarantee they could start in October. October's in 3 days. Could they really have started in October? No. So this again, we don't know how far this is going to go down the road, but for them to come up with a plan, I would say there is no rush. The players are putting together a committee, and they're going to start talking to the NHL next week about how to get the following season started. Keep in mind, it's worthy of note, there are 7 teams that haven't played a single game since March. Nothing. And the earliest they're going to play is probably going to be, I would say, last week of December. So that's a long time to be off skates. It means that for players who dealt with injuries throughout their careers, they may be healthy for the first time in a long time, but in general, players at this point are probably chomping at the bit to get back at it. And I would think for any team that lost a play-in round, so they went months and months without hockey, and then they come back, they play 3, 4, or 5 games, and then they're off again for months and months, they're going to want to get back and play too. So that's more than half the league. Byfuglien, Elliot Friedman reports Byfuglien's highly unlikely to return. I get this question every now and then too. People ask, do you think Dustin Byfuglien's coming back? And immediately, no. No. Because any subscriber who's reached out to me that has seen him, anybody who might be tied towards the team or anybody who might be aware of the player and his headspace, they've all said the same thing. He is not in shape. He's not been on the ice. And he doesn't seem to have any interest in playing hockey at this stage. He's kind of done. And I think, it's weird in a way. I mean, yes, I don't agree with walking out on your contract and walking out on your teammates. And I think the way he did it kind of sucks. But I can respect a guy admitting, I don't have the drive to do this anymore. And not coming into camp and saying, I don't really feel like doing this anymore. Office Space, when Peter Gibbons like, I don't like my job, I'm not going to go anymore. That was one of my favorite moments in the movie, because I thought, man, that level of not caring about whether or not you're going to have a place to live, it's bewildering, and yet there's something inspiring about it. So Byfuglien doesn't have to worry about finding a place to live. He's made a lot of money in the NHL. Yeah, he left a lot of money on the table by not finishing out his contract, but he from everything I've heard, he's happy. This isn't a case where it's a guy that's, upset and sad and depressed and life's gone wrong for him and everything's all, garbage in his life. Nah, it sounds like he's pretty happy. He just doesn't want to play hockey anymore. So honestly, I think it's fine. And if he was to come out tomorrow and say, I think I might play, due to the amount of tools he has in the toolbox when he's in shape and he's motivated, teams would definitely be interested in him, but I don't think it's going to happen. So with all of the talk about Line A, and it's continuing, the one thing that Elliot Friedman said last night too, and I've discussed this on the channel. So they have the number 10 draft pick, right? And when I did the mock draft, I had them drafting, Jarvis at 10, I think it was, or Quinn at 10. And right away, Jets fans are like, no, you've lost us because we need a center. Yes. But you're not going to get the number 2 center for the Jets next year in this year's draft. Unless they were somehow able to trade up and get the number 2 or 3 draft pick and get Stützle or Byfield, and those picks are not on the market, they're not getting a guy in this draft who is ready to be a number 2 center in the National Hockey League. Lundell is going to be a good NHL center. But when? So odds are he's not ready this year, probably next year. Will he be a number 2 center next year? Maybe. The Jets, their need is right now. And you do need to make a trade to fill that number 2 center spot and your right-hand defenseman that you've needed for a while. So you're not going to be able to change that at the draft, not right away. And again, if they were drafting in the top 3, totally different conversation. To drafting the top 3, I'd say Byfield would be perfect for the Jets. He would be that big physical player they needed against the Flames they didn't have, and you'd have a whole different narrative with Winnipeg. But that number 2 center spot, it may end up being a trade. And Line A is the obvious target because of the way his contract's structured, because of the players on this team that are viewed as being key guys, and because of the market value for Line A, he's the obvious target. So I do apologize to Jets fans who may love Line A and not want to see him get traded, but that rumor is going to be out there at least until the next training camp, I would think. And again, it's because the Jets have been trying to fill that number 2 center spot for a long time. Brian Little being injured and no word on whether or not his career is going to resume. That doesn't help either. So for the Jets, they've got a lot of things they need to work on fixing. And trading Line A, if they get the right return, you could fill both the number 2 center spot and pick up a defenseman while you're at it. So, but again, it depends on trading partners. We'll see what happens, but the Jets are going to be in the news for a while here. Columbus may have interest in Andreas Janssen. I don't know that the Leafs are looking at moving Janssen after moving Kapanen. I think that helps with their cap space issue. But if they moved Janssen, that would help with their cap space issue as well, unless this was a hockey trade. Hockey trades are where a team makes a trade with the other team that's made just for trade reasons, not for cap reasons, not because of contract reasons, but because, hey, I have something you need, you have something I need, let's make a trade. That's how trades used to work in the National Hockey League. And it could be a hockey trade in that Janssen would likely mean fetching back a defenseman from the Columbus Blue Jackets. Yes, I've seen the rumors of Nylander for Werenski. I really wish that the rumor sites didn't just throw names out there, and that's very often what it is. And they'll say, I'm hearing that this week Seth Jones might be on the market, and the Leafs may trade Matthews because they're worried he may want to go to Arizona. So, Matthews? No. Just no. The Janssen thing sounds more realistic. The idea that the Leafs might be willing to part with Andreas Janssen for maybe either cap relief or to pick up a defenseman to shore things up. Columbus showed they have a lot of depth in their organization with the amount of injuries they were able to absorb. Jones and Werenski are non-starters when it comes to trading defensemen, but there might be something else there to be worked out with Columbus. The one thing I would say is Toronto needs another dynamic defenseman, like what Tyson Barrie was supposed to be. So you've got Morgan Rielly, who is fantastic. Rasmus Sandin may become that defenseman. Liljegren, there's still that outside chance Liljegren would become that, but they need that goal scoring, forward thinking kind of defenseman who can make the other team concerned on a fast break. And while I love guys like Hall and Dermott and the work ethic of them, they don't have that offensive acumen that, for instance, bringing in Jones would have. So if they could get Seth Jones, they're not going to get Seth Jones. But I'm just saying they may be looking at a more offensively minded defenseman if they're dealing with Columbus. Keeping in mind Werenski and Jones would not be something that likely would get a response from Kekalainen other than hanging up the phone. And then, coming back to last night's game, I watched last night's game and I said to Yvonne while I was finishing up the board, I said, I said that was a really well called game. I said, how long do you think it's going to be before people complain about the officiating now because there wasn't enough penalties called? And she said, oh, automatically. And so this is where it gets interesting because in game 4, yeah, they called a couple of borderline calls that normally wouldn't be called in a Stanley Cup final. The thing I thought was funny was last night Brian Burke was saying these are calls in September or October, not in the Stanley Cup final. And I wanted to say, but Brian, it's September. But I thought, no, I know what he's saying. And it's interesting because, last night, did they let stuff go? Absolutely. Are there times where the referee doesn't see the infraction? Absolutely. Referee only has one set of eyes, I guess 2 sets of eyes when you consider there's 2 referees on the ice. And I agree too with Craig Simpson that there are times during a game where the referee that's right there and sees the play doesn't call it, and then the referee at center does. And that's frustrating. When a referee that's right there and sees the play goes, that's not a penalty, and the guy at center does. And it's that kind of conflict that when the 2 referee system came in, there were some, myself a traditionalist in this area, I thought a 1 referee system was better. I did. And the 2 referee system is good, and with the speed of the game now, it's probably better to have 2 referees. But the guy at center ice shouldn't be making the call from 100 feet away that the guy that's right there isn't making. That's the only complaint I really have with the playoffs with the officiating. And then the comments are, I don't think Shannon even saw the game because he's not talking about all this. Because, again, if there's calls being made, kill off the penalty. Dallas had that option in Game 4. They just decided not to do it. They only killed 1 out of 4 penalties in Game 4. It was one of those things that, and it happens because with Dallas, of course, their penalty killers are all injured or hobbling like Dickinson. But, either way, you still have to find a way to kill those penalties off. And then last night, there was only 3 penalties in the entire game. and immediately there's complaints. Well, this was missed and this was missed, and yeah, yep. And you can go back as far as you want. Watch hockey games from the 70s, 80s, 90s. You will see tons of penalties that get missed all the time because we have the benefit of replay, slow-mo, different camera angles. Referees don't work that way. They're not Terminators. They got one set of eyeballs. That's it. And we can't be reviewing every single penalty because then it becomes football. And it's just, it gets kind of ridiculous. Even, watching NFL now and looking at the NFL now and comparing it to 20 years ago. And I thought football had a lot of stoppages 20 years ago. But now with the amount of reviews that get done in the National Football League, it gets to be kind of sad where, they'll say, well, we're checking to see if it was a catch. And it's like, that was clearly a catch. Or that was clearly a fumble. Why are we spending 5 minutes reviewing it? So I don't want to see hockey go that route. And I think the referees do a pretty good job with a game that's got, 12 guys on the ice, including the goaltenders. And you're trying to watch everything. And sometimes the stuff that gets missed isn't where the puck is. The referees are watching where the puck is a lot of the time. Most of the time, I would say. And rightfully so. And so stuff's going to get missed. It's going to happen. That's just the way hockey works. But what if fans want to see? Do they want to see like every single penalty reviewed? Do they want to see like one of the referees is put in the stands and he can just buzz down and no, we'll call a whistle now because I think that was a penalty. I don't know. I've always preferred a game where it's 5-on-5, where you can say, you know what, the players decided it, and that was how I felt last night. Was that it was decided 5-on-5, and that, Tampa was the better team for most of the night, but Dallas found a way to secure victory. So we'll find out tomorrow night what the fans are angry about then, but I'm sure there'll be something. And yeah, I'll be here to report on that when it happens. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.